I can't actually change anything till after the fact. There we go.
Yep.
It says excellent. I haven't seen my picture yet. It's coming. There it is. I'm there. We're good.
There it is.
Oh, that's right. I have to. This thing. Muted. That'll help. That'll help. Hey, Teresa, you are first. Hey, Teresa, you are first. Hi, Carla. Happy solstice and Merry Yule. Hey, yes. Teresa, you are first. Hi, Carla. Happy solstice and yes. Hi, Carla. Oh. Yes. Hi, Carla. Yes, it's
Why'd
using
you mute microphone?
I don't know.
Your speakers.
I don't usually mute them.
Oh, whatever. It's not interfering with it. Oops. Sorry. Just turn that down. Turn it down all the way. Speakers. You can hear your speakers while you're...
Okay. We're having fun. What can I say? Tina says, hello. Happy winter solstice. Melissa says, hi, Siofra. Hi, Melissa. Teresa says, I think I managed it for once. Yay. Yes, you did. And you are echoing. Now we fixed that. Tom says, hi, Siofra. Hi, Tom. Robert says, hello, all. Hello, Robert. Carla says, I hear that too, Teresa.
Is it
Audio output wire.
Is it still doing it now? Still echoing, I guess, is the question. Did we get
is it still echoing is the question. Melissa says, hi there. Teresa says, I love what you are wearing. And Carla says, I got my solstice candles in their holders, getting ready to light them at sundown. No echo. We're fine. We're fine.
Oh, good.
Robert says, we ear fine. Not echoing anymore. Okay. I don't know how that happened. I usually don't have to do any kind of a setting for that. It's weird.
Oh, yeah.
It just, computers change themselves. It's annoying as heck. All right. Now we're back. So, how are you all doing this week? How are you, Teresa? Did you get your place plowed, so are you able to get out now? Or are you going to have to do it yourself? Teresa says, new pendant? Yes. This is a lapis pendant that I made for myself. And I like it. Robert says, is it true the rightful calendar has 13 months? Well, it's true that the original calendar was 13 months because there's 13 lunar cycles in a year in general. So, but they wanted to change it. That's why we have different numbers of days in every month. Imagine says, hello everyone, happy solstice. Hi Imagine, happy solstice to you. No matter where you are on the planet Earth, it's the solstice today. Winter up north, summer down south. Teresa said, I was lucky that my neighbor came out yesterday. There was so much snow. Good. I'm glad. Tom says, I'm good. I shaved my head, 4 years worth of long hair. Wow. Did you give it away to, wig makers for people who have chemotherapy and need hair? It was 4 years worth. It could be long enough to donate. I think you have to have 10 inches to donate. Robert says, you're wearing a bloodstone? No, I'm wearing a lapis. See if I can get a closer picture of it. It's blue, not green and red. I look funny when I say blue. I washed myself to get that just a little bit past it. Looks green from here. Sorry. Carla says, that's gorgeous. Thank you. I actually sold the very first pendant that I made that I put up on my Etsy page. I haven't gotten them all up yet, but and I'm learning a new wrap the last couple of days, and I really like how it looks. We'll see if I can pull it off or not. Imagine says, I went to the forest and gave almond pie to the Fae. It's the first time celebrating the winter solstice, so I hope they liked it. Wow.
Bet they did.
Who wouldn't like almond pie? Teresa says, that pendant is exquisite. Thank you. Robert says, I wear an angel aura quartz. It's high vibe, more than expected. Does it interfere with when you're trying to be calm? I mean, if it's that high vibe. Tom says, I have the hair. I'm going to donate. Awesome. I remember, in our family, when we were getting haircuts, we would always do that because human hair wigs are just so much better than synthetic. And since it's donated hair, it's not like people have to have their head shaved to make the wigs. They just use the hair when they can. So thank you very much for thinking of other people. Robert says, Tom, laugh out loud. Stone says, for some reason I feel incredible hate and rage for my ex. I want her back, but I don't know what I even want in general. Your live popped up. Maybe you have some words that can give me guidance. Well, for one thing, if it's not mutual, it's a bad idea. And it's not fun when you want something and someone else doesn't, but that means it's not a good match. And if you push it, it will get worse. That would be my words of wisdom. Knowing how relationships work and energy, it's like, so your best option is to try and forget about the person. I know that can be difficult when you have your heart set on somebody, but to try and put the energy that you thought you would put into a loving relationship with someone else into yourself instead, and nurture you and do healing work on yourself, so that then when the right person comes along, even if it's the same person later on, you'll actually be in a better place and ready to receive a healthy relationship. And working on your own stuff is the best thing you can do for any relationship on the planet, in my opinion. And people don't like to do that, but it really works. And no one can fix you but you. There's no person out there that's going to magically make you feel better about the world and everything else. That's the you work. We all have to do that. I have to do that. My husband has to do that. We do that for ourselves, and then that helps us with our relationship with each other. Helps to have less projection, less communication snafus, so we're more likely to understand what the other person is trying to get at. And if we don't, we're good at asking follow-up questions and interested in what the other person has to say about whatever issue it might be. And so, clear communication, good boundaries for them and for you, and, working on you, becoming a happy person with or without another person in the picture, because the universe is everywhere. It's all out there. There's lots of things that you can relate to and that can give you that connection and acceptance back that's not necessarily embodied in a person that's outside of you. That's one of the things that I learned when the tree reached out to me when I was going through a divorce and was extremely depressed and crying my heart out. And I had a tree in the backyard where I was living, felt my pain, and wrapped its arms around me. It felt physical even, and gave me so much love and comfort. It shocked me out of the state I was in. And the other thing too is, generally speaking, anger is sort of the first emotion we experience before we let ourselves experience pain and grief. So it could be that your anger right now is masking some grief. So if you have someone you can talk to about it, it's a good idea. It can help us process our feelings, having someone to bounce it off of, and so forth. Robert says, less anxiety, the very subtle one, and less stress, and I digest better. Good. Teresa says, I bet the angel aura cancels out its devil horns. Right, Robert? Imagine says, my boyfriend gave them rice, and I gave sugar and the pie. He said I was trying to be the favorite. Robert says, Siofra, at one point in your life, did you try the carnivore diet, only animal products? I've always gone, I guess, the middle road, moderation in all things. I was vegetarian for a while. I've never been just carnivore, although we did do the Atkins diet briefly. It really
more for weight loss.
Yeah,
stuff,
and I think that moderation and variety are the things that make it less likely for you to become allergic to the foods that you're eating, for example, and also less likely for you to become deficient in one kind of vitamin or another. So the more variety you can have in the stuff that you consume, the likely you are to create a good balance for your body. So no, I haven't. And probably not going to. Robert says, Teresa, or in a way, it did. The angel aura cancels out his devil horns. Quartz seems to amplify the good and delete the bad. At Sylphide says, my aunt passed away this Friday. May she be free from suffering. I'm sorry. It's hard when people pass, especially near important days. It seems to hit us harder for some unknown reason. That's because every time it comes around again, we'll remember it maybe. Because it's one of those, target dates. Yeah. So, at the least, your aunt is not in physical pain anymore. So that's the good news for her. Robert says they inject platinum in the quartz. It makes angel aura quartz. Okay, so that's not the blue aura quartz that they put gold on and heat it up to make it blue. It's a different type of thing. They're using platinum instead. Robert says the angel aura quartz is super strong yet soft energies, and I get more attuned to a better version of myself, it seems. That fella says then daemons are real. If daemons mean spirits, yes, there are spirits everywhere of all kinds.
But don't confuse the word daemons with the word demons.
Yes, and for some people, demons are real because they believe in them strongly enough, and there's plenty of thought forms out there, and there are some beings that other people have identified as demonic because they have bad jobs, things we wouldn't want to do, like, making hurricanes and floods and tornadoes and earthquakes and volcanoes and things like that interfere with our life. But, I was thinking about this earlier. So if you have 10 quote unquote negative beings that will give you help if you follow their demands and give them what they want, or on the other hand, you have 100 positive beings who are willing to help you out of the kindness of their job and their heart and will not ask for anything in return and will make sure they don't do anything for you that's going to damage your karma in the future, which group do you go to? I always go to the positive end of things. Because if I can get it done that way, there's no reason to dip into what people think of as the negative. And, it's like the negative exists for a reason. It doesn't mean that that's the balance of the universe. That's a different kind of thing. It's our human definitions of good and bad, positive and negative.
And whatever it is, you're going to bring a certain amount of that into yourself. And it's certainly better to bring the energy of a higher being if you're going to be exposed to it than that of a lower being, which will tend to, even if the being itself does nothing, just dealing with like the ones like Solomon's, the goetic demons and things like that, their energies will have a negativity that will tend to get in your aura and just do that just by exposing yourself to their energies. So it's the same way, if you're going to meditate on something, do you meditate on like a secret master, or you do meditate on somebody like Hitler or something? I mean, depending on what you want to draw in, but
yeah,
same kind of idea.
Yeah,
Much more pleasant to expose yourself to the positive energies than the negative ones.
yes, and they don't have to be like they're not like saccharine white light, like things. I mean, there's plenty of power in what we think of as the lighter spirits. Robert says, I notice also that any kind of negative energies cannot influence me or attack me. Well, when you're wearing that, good. Fella says, yes. Robert says, angel aura quartz is like with rainbow colors. How fun. Imagine says, I tried researching how to celebrate this winter solstice, especially more on the faith side. Do you know what are some traditions, or should I just do what I want with intention? Well, I mean, the Fae are busy throughout the year. This is probably their quietest time when it comes to it because things are sleeping and they've already put the plants and stuff like that to bed, and the animals that are resting and so forth. So I'm sure that they notice when the sun starts coming back because I'm sure that's a very exciting and energizing kind of thing. But I'm not really aware of specific traditions just for the Fae for this time of year. This is probably when they're taking their holiday from doing all their work, I would think. I actually had, I think the female she that I saw when I was a child visited me this week a couple of times. And so that was kind of interesting. Stone Orchard says, thank you very much. My problem is more about the rage and anger. More than a year has passed. When I get angry at someone, very bad stuff happens to them. It's ever since I pray she is protected. Well, still working on yourself is always the right call. Let's see, Tom says, I'm doing a Tibetan Buddhist mantras and visualization and prayer to resolve spirit attack during sleep paralysis. When doing it routinely for a couple of days, I had a worse experience while sleep paralysis. Why? Probably because you're being more consciously aware of the fact that it's there and you're pointing a finger at it in a light, I would think.
So, and also for mantras to be effective, they
It takes
need
a
to be
while.
repeated a lot of times.
So try and stay with it. I mean, that's the thing. Is like, okay, you haven't had your ankle hurt in forever, and you start telling somebody about how your ankle's feeling great, and then the next thing you know, you twisted your ankle and it hurts like hell again. It's that kind of thing. It's like you've brought it into conscious awareness, and now you're trying to pull that back down into your subconscious, and so,
Yeah.
you know.
And if you do it with good visualization stuff, mantras don't take as many repetitions, but in the Tibetan and stuff, they're talking about like 100,000 repetitions or more before those things become functional in some cases. Ideally, with ideal concentration and focus, if you're very, very powerfully concentrated, 463 repetitions would kind of be a minimum to get them to function fully. But that all depends on where you're at to start with it.
Yeah, and the other thing that comes to mind is that if your experiences during sleep paralysis have created sort of like a thought form larva kind of a thing because you've had so many, anytime you attempt to change and get rid of something like a larva, it has a self-preservation mode where it tries to fight back and tries to dissuade you from doing it because once you succeed, it's gone and it knows it, even though it's not technically alive. So that could be a good sign. That actually might be a positive indication that you're having an effect because things are changing, even if they seem to be changing for the worse. So that's what I would think, because I know that happens when people are trying to get off of substances and so forth, when they've got pretty strong larvae that they've created with that, and all the intrusive thoughts that come in and so forth, trying to encourage them to continue the practice and come up with all kinds of rationalizations and so forth. So, Carlos says, I have a question about bathroom magic, and that's a kind description. What do you think about writing on toilet paper before your business, then wiping it? I know this is crude, but it came up on Facebook. I know someone who would write the name of somebody, put it in the toilet, and pee on it. It's a statement. You're making a statement to the universe how you feel about somebody. So that's basically, what is it called? Similarities, the similar kind of stuff by association.
Sympathetic magic.
Sympathetic magic. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. That's like a form of sympathetic
It's
magic.
just the same thing as a psychic attack of a particular form on somebody. Look at it that way. You know, sending somebody bad thought form images. So, and it depends.
Yeah, if you're doing it to
Just
get
with
it out of yourself so that it's not bothering you, and the point of doing that is it's going in to be recycled by the earth, that's one image. If you're doing it because you're angry with that person and you want them to know how you feel, that's different. So intention makes a huge difference in how it would be perceived, I think. Carlos says, if nothing else, it's creative. Teresa says, there are numerous winter deities that one can connect to this time of year. Robert says, I use more and more salt in many things I do. It helps. Imagine says, oh, cute. I love when spirits revisit us. Yeah, I didn't even realize what she was until recently because I actually tried to paint a picture of her when I was young, and it wasn't a satisfying experience from an artistic perspective because I didn't have any skill. But I was really trying to capture this face and her violet eyes and her long white hair and everything else and since I've been connecting with some of the she in my area, and they, when I see them, they all have long white hair. It suddenly dawned on me one day that this was probably a she that I encountered when I was a child, and then several times now it has appeared in my room, and this week it did. Sure. I had an interesting dream experience. I don't know exactly what to call it. A few nights ago, around 4 o'clock in the morning, I woke up and I had been dealing with this. I think a mother and a child relationship was in the dream, and I could see their silver cords. They were like out of their body together, I guess. And I could see that the mother's silver cord had like twisted around on the inside of the child's silver cord, and it looked like a bad thing to me. And I went in to their cords and I undid the connections and separated their cords away from each other. And then I woke up and I thought, what? What was I? I don't know who that was or why I did that. And could I do that? And is that a good idea? It brought up lots of questions. It was just sort of interesting that that just sort of spontaneously happened. And then I thought, yeah, I'm never going to remember this because I'm going to go back to sleep. And then that's the only thing I remembered when I woke up. I didn't remember the other dreams that I had. So, Blue Lotus says, I broke a jar of honey, so I decided to pour it onto the ground. I diluted it with water, but there were drops of my blood in it. Have I done something stupid? I don't think so. You've identified who you are by having your drops of blood in it, and you are giving it back to the earth, so that doesn't seem stupid.
Yeah, no, don't need to worry about that.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Carlos says baneful, so it's sympathetic. Imagine says also, I learned in my university that the bacteria in your intestine can report to your brain, and they help with the intrusive thoughts that maintain old habits because they have adapted to that. Ambient. Okay. Carlos says, I should probably not use that particular route. Not unless you can maintain the positive outlook I mentioned. Better to put it in a rock and throw it in a river. Imagine says, so the larva is actually a very, very good metaphor. Yes. I mean, it's a real thing to us. It's not a metaphor, it's an actual reality that exists in our auras that some of us can see, and I can sometimes see them. I've seen them in other people and so forth, and they're creepy. I don't like them. And if your aura is clear of them, people who have a fair number of them don't like to be around you. They like, go away, leave me alone. You make my larva uncomfortable. So it's kind of interesting. Stone Orchard says, what are your suggestions about routine? Waking up and going to bed mainly, and also getting into the feeling of love and or peace. Well, I like to have a routine. I think a routine helps your body, and it helps with meditation. Ian has a routine for when he meditates and when he listens to music and so forth, and it helps to prepare your
Yeah,
body
your
for the
body
event.
starts preparing ahead of time. If you meditate like at a certain time, your meditation eventually becomes better just because you're doing it at the same time because your body knows it's going to happen. It ramps up. It makes the chemical changes that your brain needs to get you prepared for meditation. So yeah, it's highly recommended to have a set routine for doing things if you're trying to make progress.
And certainly from a health perspective, we need a good amount of quality sleep. That's kind of how our bodies roll. And without that, and without the ability to dream and process and so forth, it can literally drive us to insanity. I had a time when I was really super sick, and I didn't sleep for 10 entire days. And boy, the visual effects are quite astonishing. They were pretty interesting. Of course, I was on the verge of going into the light at that point, and if you go long enough without sleep, it can literally kill you. So, sleep is good. I approve of sleep. So, let's see. Tom says, that experience I'm talking about, I had a dream that I was in a fast car driving super quick, usually, became lucid, then I became paralyzed, and it started to slice my back instead of the usual press. So instead of pressing your chest, it sliced your back. Okay. Sorry, guys. Whoops. I just smacked the microphone. It's probably going to sound funny. Carla says, you just read my mind because I need another rage rock. Yeah, passive telepathy is my jam. I do it all the time, even on myself, which is pretty funny. I read my own mind occasionally. Like, oh, I'm going to miss that turn coming up because I'm not going to be paying attention. And then, sure enough, I missed that turn because my mind wandered into a different nook of my brain and it was gone. It was like, ah! Yep, I should have read my mind better. Tom says, press its fingers into my back, I meant. That could be a sign of Kundalini, the sensation of Kundalini coming up the spine. So it could be a misinterpretation of what it is. It could be that the imagery is what's throwing you, and the sensations are odd. And certainly when Kundalini is active, which I've had mine really active this past week, it can be unsettling to say the least. And it can feel like a lot of different things because the energy is rushing through you. And a car engine, Kundalini, I could see some correlations there in between the imagery and so forth because the Kundalini is the engine of your spiritual development and it helps with your physical reality as well. So sometimes just sort of changing how we look at it and changes our responses to it too. Not necessarily, but the thought. Imagine says, oh wow, can you explain those larvae? Are they for any habits? How does one get rid of them? I have a video about larvae and thought forms and so forth that you can look at, but any obsession, let's say, something that is physically or emotionally addictive, will create a larva. So alcohol, drugs, um, different kinds of substances,
Yeah, it doesn't have to be
sexual
physically.
obsession,
It could be like a gambling addiction.
addiction,
Also, it doesn't have to be like an actual drug or anything
right?
like that. Yeah.
And it can be a sexual addiction. It can be, yeah. There's anything that sort of overtakes your
Yeah.
body and
Anything
your
that's kind of
mind.
an obsession of any sort, because it doesn't need to be an addiction either. And it could be an obsession with a certain person, and then you create your own larva that makes it seem like that person is doing things to you. Barton mentions things like that. Yeah.
And getting rid of the larva is ceasing the activity and changing how you function. And like I said, like if it's a physical addiction, say like smoking, which I never did, but I've known plenty of people who have and then quit and what happens to them. It's like when you quit the addictive activity, well, with alcohol too. I've seen that in person. I'm lucky I don't have that kind of a personality, thank goodness, in this life anyway. And as soon as you decide to change things and stop doing something that has created this larval form, it will start to try and short circuit your progress. It'll start giving you thoughts. You'll start thinking, why does it matter anyway? Or what do I do with my hands? And I can't go out for a break anymore because I'm not smoking with my friends. I mean, I used to use this for stress reduction, and now I have so much stress. I don't think I can cope. I need to go smoke. And those are mental tricks to try and get you to resume the activity. And the closer you get to completely ceasing it, sort of the stronger that impulse can become. And that's the signal it's dying and it knows it. It's like it has a certain level of self awareness. And the ones that I've seen, they actually, if you can see them, you know what they are. They look and smell exactly what they would be. Yeah, it's hard to describe sometimes, but I saw the thought form for hate once, and I knew exactly what that was. I had zero doubt whatsoever that that was hate. And so when you can see things in that realm, um, they're not hidden. Their nature is obvious. But most of us can't. Most people don't see them that way. So you're left with the thoughts in your head, the impulses, the situations that you'll put yourself in, try and beat it, because that's how they survive. That's how they were created. They get created by the substance or activity or the obsession. And so if you cease it, then they cease to exist. And even though they're not really alive, they have a level of self-preservation instinct that makes them want to stay. And that's why the closer you get to getting rid of them, the stronger they get briefly. And then they're gone, and then you're free of it. Unless you decide to pick it up again, and then you're like, ooh, haven't seen you in a while. So Carla says, yes, yes, it definitely happens. Tina says, I love my new wand. It has a lovely energy. Are you one of the people that bought one of my new wands? That's lovely. I'm so happy. And I'm glad you have a new wand anyway, even if it wasn't from me. Melissa says, do you know of an illustration of that process? I think I just tried to describe it. And you can look at the video that I did on it, trying to describe it more.
Yeah, you can download Barden's books because they're past copyright, I believe. Anyway, download PDFs on them, and his first book has a really good description of larvae and stuff in one of the chapters.
Yeah. And that's a funny, interesting thing because I knew about these. I've always known about them. And I never didn't know anyone else knew about them. So, let's see. Imagine says, oh, then aren't people nowadays with more larvae than before because of our phones and stuff? Well, I'm certainly, that probably doesn't help. Being out in nature and away from technology and being in the world itself, the real world, is helpful. There's no doubt about it. It's one of the reasons why I'm a pagan. It's like I use my phone and I use technology and so forth, but I have enough experience of that not being necessary is that I can pick it up or put it down when I want to. I thought it was funny. This morning, my phone decided to give me a report about how much I used my phone last week, and I used it this week 11 minutes more than I did the week before. And I'm like, that's because you keep pushing notifications that I have to clear out my phone, not because I was trying to use it. So yeah, it's a funny thing. So, Robert says, Tina, your wand has which gemstones? Ooh, that is mine. Yes, I loved that one. That was really nice. Um, Tom says, I feel like this harmful spirit is a thought form of my tendency of intense negative thoughts. Well, that could be. Very much so. And Tina says, Robert, Amazonite, amethyst, and tourmaline, made by Siofra. Yeah, and I thought that would make a really good fairy wand. It just had that kind of energy to it. Carla says, I can see it on people. Hate, kindness, love, indifference, numb. Is that what you mean? Not necessarily. No, those are thought forms. Thought forms and larvae are different. Each larva is very specific to one obsession. And each thought form, of course, is specific to that thought, the energy, emotion, or whatever of that thought. That's how telepathy actually works.
Main difference is thought forms are formed like on the mental plane more.
And
When you're talking
instantly,
a larva, you're talking more of a, I mean, you can have the equivalent on either plane, but usually the
more
larvas are more
astral,
astral because they're associated with emotions and things, so they would
strong
normally be
connections.
things that cause you strong emotions. You know, any type of really obsessively strong emotions, and people who happen to have a, think they have a love affair with an actress on TV or something, you know,
Yeah, so an
something that's
idea,
unrequited that can't be
right.
satisfied usually.
Yeah, so it can be hate or kindness or love, but those are also separate things.
Yeah, it's more the obsessional idea, and then it gives it sort of a, it all forms together and forms something which, though it's not really alive, it has sort of a self uh, protection. It's not the word I'm looking for.
Self-preservation.
Self preservation. So it'll fight you. But the best thing to do with those is their obsessions and things is you just starve it to death by not feeding it the emotions or whatever that feed them harmful ones. So
Carla says, I can see it on people, right? Teresa says, I noticed that your pendants don't ship to Canada. Is that intentional? Not that I know of. I'll have to look into that. It could be because of all the tariff stuff going on. Maybe Etsy kind of did that, or maybe it was something that happened to me and I needed to do it for some reason. I don't know.
not intentional.
But not intentional that I know of.
Yeah.
Carla says, even baths. Crazy, I can see. Batshit crazy. Even.
So that way she didn't get censored.
I see. Okay. She said bath sit. Okay, I was bad. I said it the right way. Melissa says, thank you, Ian. And Brianna says, I'm going to start EFT tapping to get rid of negative thought forms. Good.
That can only do you good because negative thought forms and larvae only suck off your energy and do you harm.
Yeah, they're not useful in general. Unless it's not a negative thought form so much as like a warning that something negative might be coming your way and you need to pay attention. That's a difference. So, yeah. Sometimes it's hard to tell which is which. Carlos says, thank you, Siofra and Ian. Great explanation. Nocturne says, hey, Siofra, Ian, chat, blessed Yule. Hi, Nocturne, blessed Yule back. Jesus says, maybe look into your shipping settings. I will, but not now. Stone says, what do you think about manifestation? Sometimes to me it's as easy as deciding it, but sometimes it feels like impossible stuff. I don't understand why I'm so good sometimes. It's going to be a matter of whether or not it's aligned with your best interest.
Yeah, there's a zillion reasons.
Yeah. I mean, it could be that someone else is going to need whatever it is you think you want more than you, or it could be that you've got some unresolved unconscious thought form that's blocking you from getting it and you haven't looked at why. I mean, there's always a lot of different potentials. So, and also it could mean that the tides are just not right. The tides of magic that go throughout the world, very similar to the ocean tides. It's like there's an ebb and flow to magical energy and being in tune with and having to rest from. And so it could be that your tide is not lining up with the larger tide that you're trying to ride, and it just means it's not the right time and you have to wait and, you know, sort of check yourself and see, okay, is there something else I can do, or is there a different way to do this? That's what I do. I mean, if the universe thinks it's a bad idea, I'm going like, maybe I don't know why that's a bad idea, but maybe it's right. That's a bad idea. And I'll do it a different way, or I'll do something else. I don't get too attached to necessarily the outcome, but I'm pretty good at manifesting stuff myself. I have to often work through a lot of paperwork, though, on the physical plane in order to get it accomplished. Nocturne says, thank you. Tom says, what's your opinion on spiritual psychosis? I feel like a lot of people like to make their illness into something meaningful more than actual cases of God intoxication or Kundalini gone wrong. I have a serious misgivings about the whole process and a lot of warnings that I give about magical psychosis, which is why I focus on grounding and boundaries and being in the world and having a certain level of skepticism, not believing your own hype just because some spirit walks up and says, hey, you're the best thing that's ever happened in the universe and the history of existence, and we want to tap you for something fantastic. And I go like, excuse me, what? That seems unlikely. So, realizing that each decision is your own to make, and it's not up to the universe to decide for you, and that a lot of those things are, yeah, I mean, they really, I've seen people go into some serious psychotic magical states, and they believe all of their own hype, and they exist in a universe that is just filled with their own thought forms, and no one else's can exist, and that's not how the world works, not how reality works.
Well, and then there's a lot of people who also like to, they don't do it consciously, but once they have something happen, then they feeling like a victim makes them feel like they have justification for the situation they're in. So a lot of times people get accidentally stuck in that without realizing they actually feel like they lose something if they're not feeling like a victim.
Well, right, and
You
change.
know, it's
They
not
don't like
conscious,
change.
but yeah.
Facing reality sometimes is
Yeah,
something that people are trying to
so
get away
anything
from.
that makes something like that special or more special for the people, you know.
Teresa says $10. Happy Yule.
Thank you.
I'll match the next 3 donations. Spreading the love, you deserve it. Well, thank you, Teresa.
Very much. Thank you very much. Yes.
How delightful. Our Yule present. I love it. Carla says, that's a tough one for me to lose, the attachment. Bria says, ha ha. Brianna. I can hit love. Can I hit love? There. I sent you a heart. Brianna says, I'm a Gemini, so thankfully my intellectual side balances out the delusional. Well, that's why I like science and magic. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that think you can't have one, you have to have one or the other. You can't have both, and I disagree. And I love knowing how things work because that helps to keep me grounded. So if I see something unusual and I don't know what it is, and I can find a logical explanation for it, then I don't have to put much energy into worrying about it.
And it's really the same thing. Magic just follows rules that the scientists refuse to even attempt to discover and things like that. So it's not really different than science. It's just a science that they don't believe in and they haven't bothered to investigate, and they won't because of their own prejudices,
Yeah.
notions. Actually, that might be a good thing because you start finding out what could really be done magically by somebody who's like a tyrant, like a Hitler or something, and like, man, you don't want the wrong people to get that stuff.
Yeah.
Government, black ops teams and things would be my first thought.
Well, speaking of which, that's why I left the United States and went to Canada for 15 years to avoid that from here. Carla says, isn't it fun when science and magic meet? Stone Orchard says, I'm also a Gemini, would love to be more Lulu. Robert says, Siofra, can certain colors that we wear can attract more easily negative energy and stick to our etheric field? I don't think so. I think that it depends on how you feel about the color, that's the important part.
Yeah, it's going to affect you psychologically more than anything else. I mean, there does seem to be a certain affinity with negative beings with just generally darker, more saturated colors, but or that's what they prefer when you're doing the evocation. Martin mentions that if you were evoking negative beings, which he doesn't go into doing, just the positive ones, that you'd use a darker, more saturated color and lighter, more,
And you certainly can use colors to bring out certain energies you're trying to work with, like.
But they don't really.
Like if I'm doing a lot of work with Jupiter. I might use a lot of blue, or
Yeah,
just to help align my energy a little bit more.
it's not like you need to worry about wearing them because of the beings it might attract, because the influence is really small unless you're working with that being and trying to influence it or do a full evocation or something. Then the colors of such small significance, the way larger significance on your psychological state.
And Carla said, probably still do. We had magicians in NASA and probably still do. Well, yeah, the rocket scientist was a magician. Brianna says, were they trying to recruit you? I know of a lady who's in the military psionics program, and she talks about she was telepathically recruited for a while, and she finally relented and signed up. The answer to that question is yes. And they were actively trying to recruit me. This was the late 1960s, and there was a group. I was near Washington D.C. That was a real hub for this activity at the time, and there was a group mind that was following me around, and other people noticed it, not just me. So I don't think it was in my mind, and I've since then found other independent verification of the program, and I did not want to have any part of it, and so I scooted away, which kept me under their radar long enough that I was able to avoid it. But they still haven't come forward with that particular program. When I went to Canada, I told people about it, and then finally they came forward with the remote viewing part of it,
Well,
which is only a small part of what we were doing.
well, we only know such a tiny amount of. I mean, as shocking as MK Ultra is, was, we only know like a very small percentage of what they actually did. The stuff we know and can prove is just atrocious, and that's what we've heard. And it was only like, I think it was less than 10% they figured, though I'm kind of unsure on the number now because it's been too long.
Yeah. Joan Orchard says, what is your take about focus and motivation? Those are big blocks for me. Maybe you have some exercises or practices that can help. Yeah, I mean, doing certain meditations over and over again will help improve your focus. Motivation is something you have to work on for, like, why do you want to do it? What's the point of doing it? If you have self-doubt, you work on yourself and your core beliefs and things, and do the shadow work, which can help with that. Brianna says she's good at manifesting, and the military had her manifesting things. Carla says, wonder if it is Gateway. No, you're thinking of Star Wars, and that's what they called the remote viewing program. No, Stargate. Sorry,
Yes,
not Star Wars. Stargate. Star Wars was the lasers in space that Reagan tried to put up, which thank goodness failed, because then the Russians were trying to put one up, and that one failed too. So yay, no lasers in space that we know of. Brianna says, yeah, now they have Psy games in Virginia and openly recruit now, so it's not a secret anymore. Carla says, we used to guess shapes on cards. Oh yeah, those cards. I had a deck of them myself, and I used them. I did some experiments at school with those cards, and I had one girl that was in my class that volunteered for the test, and I kid you not, she was 98% accurate. I've never seen anything like it. She was so obviously not guessing. And when I told her that, she freaked out and never talked to me again. Brianna says, I had a friend invite me, but I'm not even proficiently psychic. Tom says, I heard once that science truths are representations of the truth. It's still relative and not ultimate. Nothing is as it seems, and there are layers of truth to different things. Emptiness is truer. There's no doubt that it's about what we can understand in our current development. And of course, it's relative to what we know and what we learn and what we can comprehend and understand. So it evolves. Our understanding of the world evolves as time goes by. Most people no longer believe the world is flat or believe that there are no such things as germs, although someone is trying to bring that one back. They also don't believe that the sun is rotating around the earth. So there are certain things that as a whole we have come to accept is no longer true, which never were true. We just thought they were true. And so, yeah, those were definitely perceptions of reality that had no basis in fundamental
And part of the problem, as I see it, I don't want to get too far off the subject, so I'll keep this kind of short, but the idea is the way science investigates things is by cutting it down into smaller and smaller pieces. Now we were down into the atoms and little particles. We divide, science works currently by dividing everything up. And that type of approach is sort of like a microscopic vision where you don't take it makes it much more difficult to take the whole thing into account if all you're seeing is smaller and smaller pieces. And science doesn't, you know, the opposite approach is you take this thing here and this thing that happened there, and you take all the different pieces and you put them together to get a puzzle you can see the full understanding of. And it's difficult for science to do that because it chops everything into smaller and smaller pieces. And while that's very effective, it's, you know, they need to do the other part too. You need to start looking at it holistically, you know. We know the weather patterns and things now holistically. What is it doing to our whole planet, and how does everything work together?
Yeah.
And well, yeah, they need more of that. How
Yep.
all the animals, you know, rather than what they used to do, like putting all the lemurs out and then having a lemur problem to kill all the snakes. I think it was whatever it was anyway.
It was
But yes, we've had numerous
mongoose to kill the
mongoose and
rats,
snakes. Yeah.
and it was something else to kill the snakes that caused a different problem.
Yeah, so we thought we knew what was going on and started screwing around with the
Ecosystem.
the ecosystem, you know, and then got entirely unexpected results because we need to look at the whole thing before, you know. Again, it's that little microscopic point of view. You take one point, and it's, I mean, here we are. We've got a lot of science and technology, so it's done a lot for us. But if we could just add the other part in, including the human and emotional part, put that into science.
We went by so fast, I forgot to thank Tina for joining the channel. So, welcome, Tina. Thank you for becoming a fan. Fan support.
And I'll stop my phone.
Yeah.
It should all come under science, really, if people were open enough for that to be the case. But I might be kind of glad they're not. We've got atomic bombs. You know, we don't need the magical equivalent.
Brianna says, but basically the military has witches who locate other witches for them. Cool. They better not locate me. I'm not hiding, so you shouldn't have trouble finding me. Carlos says, with flashcards, did you guys try to get shapes on flashcards? Well, yeah, they're a deck of cards. They had the wavy line, the star, the square, the triangle, and the circle. Those were the 5 shapes. And yes, those were the ones that the school in North Carolina came up with. What was the name of this? It's escaping me right now, but the place that studied parapsychology. Duke University, that's what it was. So Carlos says, I'm sitting here nodding and saying yes, laughing. Blue Lotus says, what are the best magical practices to recover lost items? Not being distracted when you put them down.
What? I'll tell you what works for me. I get a hold of Siofra. I can search and search and search for it and not find it. Then I'll call her in to look for something, and half the time, all she has to do is show up, and then I'll find it.
Yep. I'm his secret weapon.
Yep.
Most of the time, I don't have to find the item myself. I just have to be present, which makes him look differently for things, apparently.
Yes, it does.
And then that makes him find it.
Yep.
So that's what you need. You need your equivalent that when you've lost an item, you have something you do or say or someone you can talk to.
A lucky finder charm.
A lucky finder charm, like me. But don't ask me, because I'm not going. And it makes you look for things in a different way, and then all of a sudden they appear. And we just did that yesterday. And he had lost a seed. We're talking a tiny, tiny seed had fallen down.
But it was an expensive, good genetic pot seed, and those things are like about $5 a piece or something. So.
And I walked in, and I said, do you have a flashlight? He showed me where he was when he opened it, and the general area it went. He backed up, got a flashlight, shined right on the seed.
Part hard to see because
It's tiny.
you gotta right into a rug,
Onto
which
a
is
rug.
yep,
That's like it's like dropping a needle into a forest.
yep.
Yes,
But thankfully, we hadn't stepped on it or anything, so it's sitting right on top.
it was
It
sitting on
hadn't gone
top. We were
down
very
in,
careful not to go into the marked area where the seed might be. So yeah. And if when you're putting things away, you do it with intention and you're aware that you're doing it, you're less likely to lose items. That can be a magical practice in and of itself.
Oh yeah, it's one of the major ones of Barton's is do everything you do with full awareness. Try to have full awareness every time you're doing things. And in this case, it was pretty good. I did have full awareness when I dropped it because I saw pretty much when it came out and where it fell, and I knew exactly.
About approximately, you just
Yeah,
couldn't see it because it was
within
too
about 3 or
little.
4 feet of the area. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep. Yes, that's an excellent magical practice, and you'll derive a lot more than just finding lost objects from it if you can succeed at
Yep.
it. I'm pretty poor at it, but yeah.
Some
I
people
work
use
on it.
dowsing, so you could give that a shot. It works for some people. It doesn't work for me, but or pendulums to find lost items. Ibby says, "Hello, everyone. Happy Sunday. Hi, Ibby, and happy summer winter solstice." Tina says, "Hearts." You're welcome, Tina, and thank you too. Tom says, "That reminds me of when people thought it was a good idea to straighten out a river, destroying the ecosystem, recreate it as it was. Then the adaptation of the ecosystem was destroyed. No winning." Yep, this is true. We're really good at trying to order things around to our liking instead of looking at something and the universe has adapted it to its best possible scenario before we come along. It has worked on creating the balances between species and populations and food supply and environmental safety and risks and hazards and all this other stuff. I mean, beavers are a great example of how letting the beavers do their thing improves the quality of rivers all over. Oregon finally stopped trying to stop beaver dams from happening in this one area. And before you know it, beavers brought back all kinds of species. They just sort of showed up and they hadn't been there for years. So it's like a total package. It's like everything
Yeah,
works in cooperation with everything
balanced,
else.
and you tweak one thing, and you throw the whole balance off. And
Yeah.
if you don't understand how the whole balance works, that's exactly
Yep, that's what happens.
that's exactly the type of thing. Yeah.
Stone Orchard says science search for certainty unless something is more than obvious. They continue searching, but it is given that scientists have their kind of closed mind.
Some of them do. Yeah.
Some of them do, but most of them shouldn't. If they're real scientists, they're supposed to be trying to find out how things are actually working, and if they find evidence that it's not working the way they thought, they're supposed to change how they look at things.
Yeah.
Of course, they're human like anybody else. I mean,
So they get invested in their own ideas like
well,
anybody else.
a big, huge ego for a lot of them, I'm sure. And someone comes up with a brilliant idea, like the guy who said, "Hey, look at where all these earthquakes are happening. This looks like a pattern. I think that the volcanoes and the earthquakes are trying to tell us something. That there's these moving plates." And scientists said, "No way. Ground is solid. It can't be moving around and floating." And guess who was right? Yeah, the guy who saw it first. That's who. Nobody else wanted to admit it for a while. Tectonics, plate tectonics. So Brianna says, "That's funny." Teresa says, "My friend used to phone me and accused me of stealing her stuff. She knew darn well I was not taking them, and when I asked why she accused me, she said when she does, she always finds her stuff then."
Yep.
The universe says, "Oh, really?" Or Teresa's spirit goes over there and hops on it and says, "Oh, really? Look, there it is, right there, right there. Look there. Stop accusing me of stuff I haven't done." Stone Orchard says, "Lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram. What are your takes, and what would you use instead? Is it a good implementation to a daily routine?"
Well, I think you could answer that, but yeah, it's a good addition to a daily routine. I did the lesser banishing ritual of pentagram I tried to do it twice a day, every day, but I always managed it at least once a day for about 2 years. The more you repeat it, like the mantras and things, the more effective it becomes. And you'll find that if you do it right, it'll take a little bit of time. You'll learn more and more about everything as you go along. Usage of the elements. Not only is it banishing, but by using it and doing the elements one at a time like that, doing all the elements, it'll tend to balance the elements in you. It could improve your health. There's a lot of uses. You can use it for positive, for bringing things in. You can put something you want to banish. I always use to push it out, push something outside the area, and then do the pentagram right in front of it, and banish it with the pentagram, and then draw the circle around to protect me from it. So I would push things out of the circle to start with, and then banish them. If I wanted to if I had to deal with current circumstances, I might push a person's like energy, like if I'd taken in somebody's energy I don't like, I'd push that out of me and then do the banishing ritual to push it away and keep it out. You can use it as an internal cleansing. You can you bring the elements through. There's a lot you can learn about the pentagram ritual. You bring the elements in and through you, and they'll cleanse you out. So you're doing a spiritual purification at the same time. Then the Kabbalistic cross banishing is a bringing down of the higher light, equilibrating of the elements. There's a whole lot to it. It's a very good ritual, and you can learn a lot from it.
And I had Ian write it as a meditation for our group to do, since we were not ceremonialists.
That's a little different too.
And so he took out the core essences of the banishing ritual and turned it into meditation. We have a video of that.
Yeah, it's not as, but I didn't aim at, the meditation is not aimed at protection, but it's aimed at self-development through using the symbolism and stuff of the pentagram ritual. Yeah.
Right. And that's a good daily practice too, anyway.
Yeah.
And also the sacred tree meditation is a good daily practice. And that can help because that clears out and balances your aura, helps to ground yourself, center yourself, create, good energetic shielding and connecting to the planet and to the light energy.
And one last thing about that is that, oh, never mind, it went away.
Sorry.
That's all right. Not your fault. It's my fault. So I guess we've talked about that enough then.
Okay. So Carla says, I was looking for a holy water bottle I was given as a kid. I tried fairy oracle cards and drew the lost and found fairy. Mom called the next day and said she found it. She must be the fairy, right? Cool. Always good to have your own fairy. I had someone once said that they couldn't see my aura, so they thought I was what Castaneda called an ally. I wasn't human. And I was like, no, I'm pretty sure I'm human, but I'm sorry you couldn't see my aura. I think that's because I have a large aura, and she is used to seeing people with a normal-sized aura. When I was at the acupuncturist, he noticed how large my aura was and commented on it, so that was kind of interesting. Because, apparently I have a wide influence. Carla says she was the fairy. Yep. So Nurture says, so much great insights. You are so fantastic. Well, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
I mean, we try to give good information when we can. The bottom line is it's all up to you. What you're going to use, what you're not going to use, whether you're going to do the practice or not, whether you're going to grow or not. You have your own challenges to face like we did and still do sometimes. And that's sort of part of being alive and being a part of existence, is that if you stop growing and think you've learned it all, you're in trouble. Serious trouble. We had that happen at Thanksgiving. A friend of my son's came over, and he had no room for conversation. And it was ironic, because just before he came over, we were just talking in general about the subject, and I was telling the mother of my daughter's boyfriend the story of the master who overflows the cup in front of the student, because the student comes in, sits at the table and says, I'm a great student, I've learned all this great stuff, I already know all this stuff already, and I want you to be my teacher, blah, 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 blah. And the master starts to pour a cup of tea in front of him and just keeps on filling up the cup, and it overflows and goes all over the table. And finally, the student notices, and what? Master looks at him and says, you're already too full, there's no room for anything else. So always emptying yourself and letting there be more room. for learning new things and growing. If we're not attached to what we know, like we were talking about with science and stuff like that, if we're not egoistically attached to a truth that we think that we have discovered, then when new truths present themselves and new paradigm shifts or understanding or epiphanies or whatever happen, then we'll be open to embrace that and grow. And that's a good thing. That doesn't mean you're wishy-washy when you do it that way. So, as long as you know who you are. So, yep, we try. We can't solve anyone's problems. We can just give them our perspective on things, and then it's all up to you.
Yeah, that pentagram ritual is also going to strengthen your aura. So you'll find as you do it for a while, then to do it once and it lasts quite some time. So anymore, it's like a big gun for me because I did it so much when I was younger. I use it once and usually it just blasts anything I'm trying to clear out or whatever right out of the way, and I have to do it once and then that's it. But as you begin, you'll have to do it more.
Yeah, you have to build up the charge.
Yeah.
Right, that's it. It's like
Yep.
I in one class I was trying to explain about psychic energy and magic and stuff like that. It's like trying to draw a circle in the surface of water. You can draw the circle and you can see that it's there, and then it immediately disappears. And that's what it's like when you're first starting, when you're trying to create new abilities and stuff like that. The first 100 times, 1,000 times, or whatever that you try it, it'll be like that drawing in the water, and you'll see it and it'll disappear. So it takes all that repetition to get it so that it's more like you're doing it on, like, say, a block of ice, and you're inscribing it into the water, and then it stays.
And which means it continuously gets easier for you to do it too as
Yeah.
you do it.
And then also your ability to see it and sense it and feel it. It's like when you're first starting out, these are things that people have described, but you haven't experienced them, so you don't know for sure exactly what they're supposed to be like. Like, what are you looking for when you're trying to do scrying or being an intuitive or talk to a tree or what have you, or encounter a fae or a spirit or whatever. It's like a bunch of people have said what it was like for them, but then their description might not mean anything to you, and you have to like blank yourself to sort of allow the kind of experience that the universe can give you that you can recognize. And it might be different from everyone else's. It doesn't mean that someone else's experience of that was invalid or untrue. It just means that their brain works differently and their energy works differently, and their ability to see and sense things is different. And so we all have that to work with. And if you were born blind and never saw color, someone describing to you all the different kinds of color they were wouldn't mean anything. But if they could describe it to you as a sound and share different sounds, and you could hear the differences because you're attuned to sound rather than color, then that would make sense. So we try to sort of cover our bases because everyone learns differently and everyone has different ways that they interact with the universe and with the energy that we're presented with. And it's like,
Yeah, well, and there's a lot of aspects. There's your chakras and the effects those produce, and the different abilities people have because of all the chakra and energetic differences. And those are whether you practice Kundalini or not, you've got this stuff going on in your body with the Kundalini energies anyway. Some practices activate them without having any overt relationship to the Kundalini. Like if you do something, you might get your third eye activated because focusing on clairvoyance so much, for example, without particularly trying to focus on the Kundalini at all.
So this is ironic. So Brianna says, I tried to get a psychic reading and the lady couldn't read me. Then she gave me an inaccurate negative reading and was mean about it. She said it's rare that she can't read people and her energy was just bouncing off me, probably because of the Kundalini. My take on that, probably she's not actually a psychic. And you didn't fit into the usual roles that she was expecting because she's doing a cold reading. And by saying that her energy bounced off you, it's your fault, means she's not responsible for not doing a good job. That's my opinion. From the experience I had with a psychic who said, you're very hard to read. And I'm thinking, you're kidding, right? A blind man can see my face and see exactly how I feel about everything, which was what happened after Thanksgiving. When I had my not fun encounter with the friend of the family that came in late. And he was like a battering ram, energetically speaking. And we got home, and Ian looked at me. He says, "I could tell by your face that you weren't enjoying that." I just started laughing because I'm so glad you know my face. Yes, you are right. I did not enjoy that, but he never noticed because he didn't care. He wasn't paying attention. He was all in his own head. But yeah,
Very true.
it's like that psychic who did that to me. She kept insisting that Ian and I were going to break up. We were on the way to a divorce, and that was what 25 years ago. She said that, I think, maybe even longer than that. We've been together for 34 years. Is it? Yeah, we've been together for 34 years. So probably been more than 30 years that she said that. Boy, was she off. And Teresa said, yet the more open one is, the better they can be read. Maybe it's a question of shielding.
Well, that could definitely be part of it, especially if you have any talismans or anything for shielding on when you go for a reading. Of course, I'd
I think
recommend
it
to take
depends
them
on the
off if you do.
psychic.
But yeah,
Hey,
well,
seriously.
if I have a
Yeah.
talisman to block somebody's psychic reading,
Then you wouldn't go to a psychic reading wearing it,
Well,
probably. But yeah, I mean, I did a Reiki session with somebody, and they forgot to tell their guardians that I was coming. And I immediately got some pushback. And I just sort of stopped and I said, okay, guys, this is good. I'm glad you're paying attention. But I was given permission, and she asked me to come. And then they were like, oh, okay. And then we were fine.
Yeah.
So
I think it's more likely. I met a lot of people, a lot of supposed psychics when I was in the OTO, and Siofra impresses me much more than any of them did.
thank you.
I mean, more than I have not met any psychic that I've been impressed with that I've actually been able to meet in person. There's some I've read about that had some impressive things happen and stuff, but yeah.
That's
Real,
the thing. It's
true,
like
good psychics are not all.
I
that
gave
easy
this
to
woman
find.
permission to read me. I was completely open, and I was not shielded. She was just a bad psychic. And she was trying to read me for my age group. Everything she said was wrong. I tried to be helpful and let her know she was wrong. She didn't care for that.
It sounded like from hearing afterwards what Siofra said. It sounded
my
more like a
God.
lot of it was an attempt at cold reading that just
Yeah.
failed badly.
Yep. And she also wanted to make sure that I listened very carefully, that I shouldn't meddle in my children's lives. And I'm like, of course I want to.
If people don't know what a cold reading is, that's where people look at the person and see the way they're dressed, and then make up certain assumptions which are not based on psychic issues at all, deciding you're probably this old, you probably have kids, or you don't have kids, or whatever, just based on the way you look and the way you dress, whether you're wearing a wedding ring, and then they collate all those things together and make something that sounds psychic. That's what you
And
call
then
a
you
cold
validate
reading.
it and tell them they're right or they're wrong, like I did, but she didn't listen to
Then
me
they
telling her she
modify it
was
around,
wrong.
yeah.
She wasn't doing a
So.
good job of cold reading either, because she ignored all the feedback I had hopefully provided. But oh well. Yes.
I only wanted to fill that in because
Yeah.
people might not aware what the term.
So Brianna says, yeah, she probably was a crappy psychic, just a crappy psychic. Stone says, also about the pentagram ritual, there's many ways, modalities to do it. What are the things you think should be practiced in a certain way, and what should be more personalized?
Well, that's a good question. Well, the first thing I think that's important is to not just think of it as a banishing ritual. And it's not really lesser either. One thing to keep in mind, if you're doing this right, you're invoking the higher powers into yourself using the Kabbalistic cross. You're balancing the spheres of Netzach and Geburah. You bring the energy down to the earth for Malkuth. You're acknowledging that the spirit, the Akaja, is in the Malkuth. So you've got the one in the everything. You've got that secret. And that gives you more or less a commanding presence. It's relating to the number 5. There's it's hard to figure out how to say something that's concise. So keep those things in mind and don't look at it like just a banishing ritual. I recommend after you do it for a while, start using the elemental colors to draw the pentagrams with. Make sure when you're making the circle, draw the circle of light around and make it very clear and positive. And that's your basic protection, the circle with the pentagrams. I would say you're welcome to personalize it as much as you want myself. I've done various things. I usually just use the archangels because they're there, and that's like. But one of the ways we personalized it for a group when we had it was by using the group was more pagan and not into the archangelic hierarchies and things, so substituted the heads of the elements from ancient times, Peralta, Gob, those guys. So use the ancient names for the heads of the elements. So there can be a lot of personalization. Just keep in mind the main function. Uh, understand the symbolism of the pentagrams. That's pretty important for the aspects and how to use them for pulling in energy or banishing energy out.
Yeah, I think with any
Um,
ritual like that, the better you understand the symbolism, the
yeah,
depth of the symbolism, that core understanding of that, the more
yeah.
powerful it
I
becomes.
think any of it can be personalized. I use it alternatively, sometimes I use it to banish things, sometimes I use it for my own self cleansing, and really it's both. It's a self cleansing, when you're working with the elements and you're bringing the element in, you bring it through the circle, and cleanse the circle, you cleanse yourself also at the same time. You're not just cleansing the circle. Yeah, I'll be glad to answer any future questions, but that's about all I can come up with in the short term, and keeping it concise enough for our channel here. But I would, if I were going to modify it to suit me, I would stick with using pentagrams and the Kabbalistic cross and understand those meanings, but then you can modify it a little bit. Like when you're on the part of the Kabbalistic cross that references Geburah, power. Normally you think of Geburah, power, Mars, and that type of thing, hot, fiery power. But it doesn't have to be, because 5 is also the number of the pentagram and the number of the Akasha. And so it's that control through the Akasha. So you could use the Geburah instead of referencing a strictly Mars energy. You could use it as a 5 energy pentagram and Akashic type of control energy. And so you can modify things a lot, but I think the only thing I would say is leave the basic structure there: circle, pentagrams, and the Kabbalistic cross. And then you can modify things to your particular needs of the moment. I'm sorry, I'm just going on too long, but
No, that's fine.
it's hard to do it in a
It's a big subject.
Yes, it is.
That's why we have a number of videos.
Yep.
Check out our videos. Look for the
Yep.
subject matter, and you might find more videos about it. Brianna says, laugh out loud, Siofra. And Iwi says, Merry Yule to all. Hi, Iwi. Thank you. I was just sitting here looking, and we have a nice misting rain right now. It's pretty solid. We had some fun on Thursday, I think it was. I'm going to sneeze. Uh-oh.
What?
I'm going to sneeze.
Oh.
Nope. Okay. It went away. Okay. I'm not going to sneeze. At least not yet. We actually had 110-mile-an-hour winds at on the bridge in Charleston, right down the road from us. That was kind of impressive. And once again, we had a doctor's appointment. So that was sort of interesting, but no more trees came down where we were, although we did see some downed trees. And there was some power loss and stuff like that, but that was the worst of the storm that we got here. We were lucky. There was lots of damage and flooding everywhere else throughout the state and up in Washington state and so forth. So it was good, interesting weather. But we're getting a nice little gentle rain right now. So we're not doing much for Yule. We're talking to you guys and having a nice chat and looking at the rain, watching our bunny jump up and down. He's really getting into the shaking his head when he's happy, which is fun to watch. He shakes his whole body. not just his head now. He just really gets into it and just starts shaking his head, throwing those locks around.
Especially when you're giving him a treat or something
Oh,
like
yeah.
that.
And the cat, who's annoyed that the bunny gets treats and he doesn't, and wants
Comes
to
over
sniff
and
the
demands
treats,
treats.
and wants to look at the treats, and really, this is what you're doing. This is not a treat for a cat. And we're going, yeah, we know. That's because we're giving it to a bunny. We're not giving it to you.
He's got his own treats. So.
He has his own treats.
Anymore, give a treat to the bunny. You got to give treats to the cat.
Yep.
Like two children. He got one. I
He
did.
feels left out.
Yep.
He says, oh my God, that sounds adorable, shaking his bunny head. Yes, and he has the long hair. So, I mean, we're talking punk rocker extraordinaire dancing like a crazy little guy. So cute. He says, I feel so much better since not celebrating the big holidays. No pressure, just chilling. Yeah. And it's nice. We've got like Christmas Eve, we're going to my son's for tacos, and I got some dairy-free shredded cheese so Ian can have cheese on his tacos since he's allergic to dairy.
It's kind of hard to find around here because we're in still a relatively small town.
Yeah, at least the local Safeway finally got in a good non-dairy cheese. They did a good job of making it taste more cheesy, and got the look too, so that's kind of fun. And then on Christmas Day, we go over to my daughter's. She's making a big meal just for the close family, so it won't be like a giant thing like it was before. But so we get family time, which is nice. I'm glad that my children are here, and I get to visit them on a regular basis, and it's pretty cool. I went in to see the allergist, and in order to get my allergy test, I have to be off of antihistamines for an entire week. And I'm like, okay, which week do I want to feel like total crap? For a whole week? No! So I have to plan that.
I know how you feel.
You know, it says I was dating a guy and he ran away after I showed him the orbs and the UFOs. Die.
Well,
Have you shown him the congressional hearing and all the UAPs and whatnot that are now public record? Getting kind of hard to ignore that there's something going on.
especially when they're bouncing missiles off them. The missiles are just
And the
bouncing
missiles are
off,
breaking.
Yeah, instead of doing any damage. Yeah.
Not breaking the UFO, but breaking the missile, yeah. Like, boom. What? Okay. But yes, Stone Orchard says, for sure, it's more than a minor banishing ritual. I'm a Christian, but I don't feel in tune with archangels and more in tune with nature. Is calling generically for spirits of X element good.
First off, dear, you missed Bryce's second one, so I don't know if I'll ever find a magical person to be my partner.
Sorry. So I don't know if I'll ever find a magical
we
person.
We just got lucky. We met at a pagan potluck.
Dessert. Potluck.
Well, what you're up to at that point. Okay. So for Stone
Orchard.
Orchids, yeah.
Orchids, not orchard. Yeah,
you could call generically, and that's okay. The idea is, and when you're doing this, I haven't decided whether you're actually creating the protectors that you're using, but the idea is that you put 4 elemental heads outside the circle to be your protectors.
So you could say, like, I call the head of the element of error and not have a name?
You could do that, and keep in mind that the real aspect of if you're using the Golden Dawn version, they use like Yod Hey Vow Hey for the air pentagram. These are the magical names, supposedly, of the forces and things that control the element And so by using that name, you're supposed to, by using that name, identify yourself with that being and bring into yourself the ability to control that element. um, and my opinion is that in doing this, you're not really, by using the archangel's name, you wouldn't be using the real archangel anyway. My feeling is that you're creating your own protector there. This is like from stuff like creating your own elementals and things. So I would say uh, I would probably recommend using an established name that's been established already just to make things easier for yourself. But um, I think if you did it correctly and you do the meditation correctly and you put the beings there as the head of an element and all that, that the name you call them would be of less importance. Um, you could name them anything you wanted. You could name them Bob if you wanted, and actually make the ritual work. I think it would be stronger if you use one that's already in existence that has already been worshipped in the past for those purposes. Like our nature ones are better. There's Gob, Peralta, Nexa,
Jinn.
and Jinn. And the Jinn is the like fire jinns of the Arabian. So
And they're a little more generic in my mind.
yeah, yeah, they're a little more generic. um, and I think you can add to the power of it by using a, a pre-named one, a hierarchy that already exists. But ultimately, I don't think it would matter if you just created your own names for them. I think it'll just take more work to get them effective. The idea is that when you're putting them outside the circle, you're putting the protectors outside the circle. The protectors are the protectors of those elements, and that element is going to protect you through their action. So they're basically, yeah, I think that's probably said what I mean there.
I think it also
well
helps
enough,
to
yeah.
visualize what they look like.
Well, yes, yes, visualize them in the elemental colors and things for sure. And of course, again, the archangels are easy because you can visualize angelic robes or something and then use the colors for them, you know. Yeah, it would be too much of a subject to try to go into creating your own, but
Especially in
you
3 minutes.
but yeah, but you could. So I don't think it's that important. It's more important that you have the elemental heads idea, and this is the force, the underlying force, the underlying divine energy that lets you control that element, that controls that element. That's what's being applied for that.
Brianna says, I think it scared him, but I had to tell him that I attract UFOs.
Yeah.
I need to go to UFO convention. Stone Orchid says, Brianna, I manifested an impossibly specific partner. I bet there's no problem with it. So did we. Sometimes there's the right person out there. Well, we've only got like 2 minutes left. I guess we're coming around to the end of our show. And the sun's going to start coming back tomorrow. Yay! Ah, I'll be so happy.
And generically, you could call for, instead of spirits, it'd be like head of, the head of the element. The main idea is getting that divine,
Yeah,
the
that's what I said.
divine that
I
has the
call the head
ability
of the
to
element
control
of
that
air or
element. Yeah,
whatever. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I wasn't into the archangel symbolism of it, but I liked the symbolic nature of it.
Yeah.
Which is why I asked Ian first, like, are there other names for the heads of the elements? And that's when I found out about Peralta and Jinn and Nexa and Gob, and
Yeah, those are mostly ancient. The ancient.
they've been around for a long time, pre-Christian.
Yeah.
So, you know, they've been words that have been associated with it. And when you think about what they are, they're actually titles. They're not specific beings. It's the title of the job
Title of a job.
that
Yeah.
that a being will take on. And so what you're doing when you're saying a name like that, you're saying, I have an empty vessel here that needs to be filled with this particular kind of energy. This is the job. This is the name of the kind of energy you need to do this job.
Yeah.
And then whatever spirit is willing or available or whatever will take on the role. Otherwise, we'd be in full trouble if there were only like one head for each element. Imagine a 100,000 rituals happening.
Yeah.
More than that, probably millions of rituals going on around the planet today. Everyone calling in the heads of the element. Boy, they'd be so busy. But yeah, being practical and all. Gina says, bye all, enjoy your holidays. Thank you. And Brianna says, I like that.
And Stone Orchid says, sorry for asking so much for the ritual. You gave me such incredible knowledge. Thank you so much. And you're very welcome.
And Melissa says, thank you so much, Siofra and Ian. And yes, that was above that.
Oh, okay.
And Carla says, great live, guys. Enjoy the holidays. Have fun with your fam. And yes, for the return of the sun. Much love, Siofra and Ian. Happy holidays, everyone. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. We look forward to this as part of our social time. Being social with you guys.
Caps lock on, so I typed that all in caps.
Ah! He doesn't want to be yelling. Yell at everybody. Teresa says, see you on the 28th for the last live of 2025. Yay! And then we'll be in a new year coming up. Of course, my new year started the 1st of November, so depends on how you look at it. For some people, it's tomorrow because of the solstice. At least the solstice is everywhere, no matter who you are. Everyone knows the solstice is happening, no matter where they live and no matter what beliefs they may have, because it's a fact. It's just science. So Ian says, blessed be and thanks for being here. Carla says, woohoo!
Yeah, y'all made another good show.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Love you all. Blessed
Bye.
be. Bye-bye.